Ivanka Trump thought she could walk onto Steven Colbear's stage, flash her perfect smile, and control the entire night like she always did. But the second she sat down, Steven looked her dead in the eyes and turned the whole interview into a brutal public takedown, mocking her polished image, ripping apart her carefully scripted answers, and exposing the Trump family's darkest secret in front of millions of shocked viewers. The bright studio lights of The Late Show, with Steven Colbear in New York City, were already burning hot as the audience settled into their seats. This wasn't just another celebrity interview. Tonight, the show had one clear purpose: to sit down with Ivanka Trump and talk about her life after politics, her business deals, and her famous family. But from the very first moment, the air in the studio felt different, thicker, heavier, charged with something unspoken. The second Ivanka Trump stepped onto the stage, she flashed that perfect smile, the one she'd used 1,000 times in boardrooms and press conferences. The audience clapped politely, some with real warmth, others just going through the motions. She looked completely at ease, shoulders back, chin up, like she owned the room. Steven Colbear stood up from behind his desk with his usual easy grin. "Ivanka Trump, everybody?" he said, waving her over. They shook hands and she settled into the guest chair like she'd done this 100 times before. For the first minute or two, it felt like any other late-night interview. Steven started light, asking about her latest business projects and how life had changed after leaving politics. Ivanka answered smoothly, her voice calm and confident. She talked about a new real estate deal she was working on in Miami, and laughed softly when Steven joked about balancing work and family. Then she shared a couple of quick family stories. One about taking her kids to a quiet weekend getaway, and another about how her father still called her for advice on big decisions. Nothing too deep, just enough to sound warm and relatable. The audience chuckled in the right places. Everything felt smooth, almost too smooth. But Steven wasn't just listening. He watched her closely. Ivanka kept her cool, crossing her legs and leaning back a little. She even made a small joke about how tough it was to get a good night's sleep in New York these days. The audience laughed again. She clearly thought she had the room under control. Then she said it, with that confident little tilt of her head. "Come on, Steven. I've handled tougher rooms than this one." Steven paused for half a second, then gave her a slow, knowing smile. His eyes locked on hers. "Well then," he said quietly, still smiling, "you're ready for what's coming." The words landed heavier than they should have. A few audience members shifted in their seats. Ivanka's smile didn't drop, but something in her eyes changed for just a split second. The easy, comfortable vibe of the interview suddenly felt a little tighter. Steven was still smiling, but the energy in the room had shifted. Ivanka kept answering with the same polished tone, yet she seemed just a little more careful with her words. Steven leaned forward a little. The audience was relaxed, still chuckling from the last light answer. Then his voice stayed calm and even, like he was asking about the weather. "Ivanka," he said, "what do you say to the claim that Jasmine Crockett and Barack Obama have made? That Barron is actually your biological son, not Melania's." The words dropped like a bomb in the middle of the studio. For 1 second, everything went dead quiet. Then the audience gasped loud enough that you could hear it over the microphones. Heads snapped forward. Phones that had been half forgotten suddenly came up. Ivanka's perfect smile froze on her face. It didn't crack right away, but you could see the shock hit her eyes. She let out a big forced laugh, the kind people use when they're trying to turn something crazy into a joke. "Wow, Steven," she said, her voice a little higher than before, just a tiny shake underneath. "You really went there tonight? I mean, come on, that's next-level tabloid stuff." She shook her head and tried to laugh again, but it sounded tight, like she was pushing it out. The audience started murmuring, a low ripple of whispers spreading through the seats. Some people looked shocked, others excited, like they knew they were watching something big go down. Ivanka quickly tried to steer the conversation away. Look, we've got real things to talk about. My new projects, the work my family's doing. She kept talking, listing safe topics, her hands moving a little more than usual. But Steven didn't jump in. He just sat there looking at her, completely quiet. 8 long seconds ticked by. No joke, no follow-up, no rescue. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes your stomach twist. The audience felt it too. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. The murmuring grew a bit louder. Then Steven raised his hand and pointed to the big screen behind him. A tweet from Jasmine Crockett popped up, clear and sharp, with the exact claim in black and white. The date was right there. Months old, but still explosive. The audience leaned in. Ivanka's eyes flicked to the screen, then back to Steven. She swallowed once, then spoke in that same steady voice she'd been using all night. I've seen the rumors, she said carefully. They're completely false and ridiculous. People say all kinds of things to get attention. But the damage was done. Her calm answer couldn't cover the way her fingers tightened on the arm of the chair. The audience was fully awake now. The energy in the room completely changed. Ivanka leaned forward toward Steven, her smile still there but sharper now, her voice sweet on the surface but cutting underneath. You're better at comedy than conspiracy, Steven. Stick to what you're good at. The words hung in the air. A few people in the audience let out surprised laughs, but most stayed quiet, waiting to see how Steven would hit back. Ivanka sat back looking satisfied for a moment, like she'd just scored a point. But Steven didn't laugh. He didn't even blink fast. His expression stayed calm, almost friendly, yet his eyes told a different story. He was studying her like he had all the time in the world. Ivanka had enough. She pushed herself halfway out of her chair, eyes locked on Steven, her voice sharp, and loud enough for the whole studio to hear. Maybe if you spent less time playing detective and more time being funny, you wouldn't be the only late-night host America has already forgotten. The audience exploded. Gasps and loud oohs ripped through the room. Some people clapped, others looked shocked, a few even laughed nervously. Phones shot up everywhere. The polite late-night vibe was completely gone. This was now a fight, and everyone felt it. Steven didn't laugh. He didn't even smile. His face stayed calm, but his eyes turned cold, like he was done playing games. He slowly reached under his desk and pulled out a thick folder. The movement was deliberate, almost casual, but the second that folder appeared, the entire studio went tense. You could hear the shift in the air. Ivanka saw the folder and didn't back down. She pointed straight at it, her voice still strong. Show me proof or admit. This is tabloid trash, Steven. Put it all out there or stop wasting everyone's time. Steven looked at her for a long second, then opened the folder without rushing. His voice stayed completely steady, almost quiet. The Trump family secret ends here. The big screen behind him lit up. First came an old blurred photo from 2015, a figure that looked a lot like Ivanka leaving a private medical clinic late at night. Next to it appeared internal messages from Trump Organization staff, time-stamped 2015. The texts were partially redacted but clear enough. Ivanka handling a major family secret, keep it quiet, and this stays between us, big one. The words hung there for everyone to read. Ivanka's face went pale. The confident color drained right out of her. Her hand gripped the arm of the chair so tight her knuckles turned white. She stared at the screen, then back at Steven, her mouth slightly open like she was searching for the perfect comeback but couldn't find it fast enough. The audience was dead silent now, leaning forward, eyes wide. No more murmuring. Just pure shock and anticipation. A few people whispered, "Holy shit," under their breath. The polite clapping from earlier felt like it happened in another lifetime. Steven didn't push harder. He just sat there, letting the images and messages sit on the screen, letting the weight of them sink in. Ivanka tried to keep her breathing steady, but you could see her chest rising and falling faster. Her perfect posture was still there, but her fingers kept squeezing that chair like it was the only thing holding her together. Steven didn't give Ivanka any time to recover. He tapped his screen again and a new email popped up on the big monitor behind him. It was from an old Trump Organization staffer dated 2015. The subject line read, "Urgent, Ivanka's situation." The body was short but brutal. "Ivanka is extremely worried about hiding the pregnancy. She keeps saying we need to keep everything quiet or it will blow up the whole family." The audience sucked in a collective breath. Whispers turned into stunned silence as people read the words. This wasn't some blurry photo anymore. This was someone who had worked inside the family business, talking directly about Ivanka trying to cover up a pregnancy. Ivanka shot up from her chair so fast it scraped loudly against the floor. Her voice cracked as she pointed straight at Steven. "This is a lie and you know it?" She pulled out a folded piece of paper from her pocket, clearly something her team had prepared, and started reading it loud and fast. "These allegations are baseless, malicious, and politically motivated." But her voice kept shaking. The words that were supposed to sound strong came out broken and uneven. She stumbled over one line, had to stop and breathe, then pushed on anyway. The audience sat frozen, watching every second. Steven raised his hand calmly. "Ivanka, please sit down." His tone wasn't loud, but it carried weight. "Let's go through this line by line. You said these are lies. Then explain this email to the people watching." Ivanka hesitated, then slowly lowered herself back into the chair. Her hands were trembling now. She gripped the arms of the seat hard, trying to hide it, but the camera caught everything. The entire studio had gone completely quiet. No coughing, no shifting, no nervous laughs. Just dead silence and the sound of her own breathing in the microphone. Steven didn't wait. He clicked again and a short video clip started playing. It was grainy but clear enough. A former nanny, face blurred and voice slightly altered, looked straight into the camera. "I worked for the family during that time," she said. "I saw things that didn't add up with Melania and Barron. Ivanka was the one handling a lot of the private details. A lot of late-night calls, a lot of closed doors. It just never felt right." The clip ended. The screen froze on the last frame. Ivanka stared at it, her face pale and tight. She tried to force a smile, the same polished one she'd worn at the start of the show, but it looked broken. Her eyes glistened. Tears were right there, threatening to spill. She turned her head slightly toward the side of the stage where her assistant was standing and whispered, barely loud enough for the mic to catch, "Get me out of here." But she didn't move. The cameras were still rolling, red lights glowing like eyes. She stayed glued to the chair, breathing fast, while the weight of the new evidence pressed down on her. The audience remained stone silent, eyes wide, some people covering their mouths with their hands. Steven sat back slightly, folder still open in front of him. He didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The avalanche of evidence was rolling now, and Ivanka was right in its path. Every new piece hit harder than the last, stripping away the calm control she had walked in with. Ivanka couldn't take it anymore. She turned sharply in her chair toward the audience, her voice shaking but loud and fierce. "You're all being manipulated right now," she said, pointing at the crowd. "This isn't journalism. It's a setup. Steven is feeding you lies for clicks and ratings." A loud split erupted in the studio. One section of the audience burst into applause and cheers, clearly on her side. The rest stayed completely silent, staring wide-eyed, some shaking their heads. The room felt divided, tense, and electric. Phones were everywhere, recording every second of the chaos. Then Ivanka dropped her biggest bomb yet. She stood up again, breathing hard, and looked straight at Steven. "If you want the real truth," she said, her voice cracking with emotion, "Barron was born under extreme medical circumstances that Melania and I protected for years. We kept it private to shield our family. It's not what this folder claims. It's not some dirty secret. It's our life." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Gasps and murmurs filled the air. People leaned forward, stunned that Ivanka had just shared something so personal on live television. Her eyes were bright with tears now, but she kept standing tall, daring anyone to challenge her. Steven stayed calm. He flipped to the last page in his folder and clicked the screen one more time. A detailed timeline appeared, dates, locations, and medical notes from 2015 and 2016. Next to it flashed several blurred medical photos that clearly showed contradictions, different hospitals, conflicting timelines, and notes that didn't line up with Ivanka's story. The evidence was cold and precise, laid out in black and white for everyone to see. Ivanka stared at the screen, her face crumbling. She turned directly toward the main camera, her voice breaking completely. "You just destroyed a family on live television for ratings," she said, tears now visible in her eyes. "I hope you're happy with yourself, Steven. This is how low you've gone." The studio fell into a heavy, shocked silence. Some audience members looked uncomfortable. Others whispered to each other. The weight of her words hung in the air, raw and emotional. Steven didn't raise his voice. He simply closed the folder slowly and looked straight into the camera with that same steady expression. "That's all the time we have tonight," he said quietly, almost gently. "Good night, America." Ivanka stood up slowly, her legs unsteady for the first time all night. She didn't look at Steven. She didn't look at the audience. Her eyes stayed fixed straight ahead as she stepped away from the chair, purse clutched tight in one hand. The studio lights felt harsher now, every step echoing louder than it should. Just before she reached the edge of the stage, she stopped and turned back one last time. Her voice cut through the heavy silence, sharp and full of fire. "History will remember who lied tonight, and it won't be me." The audience erupted for the final time. Loud gasps, shocked, "Oh my God," and a wave of overlapping reactions swept through the seats. Some clapped, some booed, others just sat there stunned. The energy in the room was raw and chaotic, like the whole interview had finally snapped. Steven stayed seated. He closed the folder with a soft snap, then looked directly into the main camera, calm as ever. "The secret is out," he said simply. "Good night, America." The lights dimmed slightly as Ivanka walked off the stage and disappeared into the wings. Her assistant rushed after her, whispering urgently and trying to keep up. Back in the studio, the audience didn't move. No one stood up. No one cheered or laughed. They just sat there in complete silence, staring at the big screen where the evidence played one last time. The emails, the timeline, the blurred photos, all of it looping slowly. The red recording lights finally blinked off. Steven remained alone at his desk for a few extra seconds. The house lights started to come up, but he didn't get up right away. A small, quiet smile crossed his face. Not triumphant, not gloating, just the faintest curve of satisfaction. He looked out at the now empty stage, then back toward the camera that was no longer rolling. The question hung in the air for everyone watching at home and in the studio. Was this really the end? Or had the real storm only just begun? The studio lights slowly dimmed as the weight of everything that had just happened still hung heavy in the air. Ivanka had walked off stage, Steven had delivered his final line, and the audience sat in stunned silence while the evidence continued to linger on the massive screen behind the desk. What started as a simple late-night interview had turned into one of the most explosive nights in recent television history. A night where secrets were dragged into the light, composure cracked, and the Trump family's carefully guarded world was shaken live on camera. If you were on the edge of your seat watching Ivanka fight back, Steven dropped bombshell after bombshell, and the tension keep rising until the very last second. Then make sure you don't miss what happens next. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss a single intense moment, shocking revelation, or high-stakes confrontation like this one. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think really won tonight, Ivanka or Steven? And what do you believe is the actual truth behind the Trump family secret? Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.